What is going on, everybody? Happy New Year, or if you're not watching this in the new year, happy new beginnings, because you don't need an arbitrary calendar to restart just to tell you that you can evolve as an artist. And that's what this video is all about, like some tips for you if you are embarking on a creative journey, or if you would like to make some shifts in your life to just be a more creative person, really hone your artistic craft, whether it's music production or visual art, whatever it may be. And yeah, just be a more happy artist, I guess. So just 5 quick things that I think will really help you all out there grow as artists. Number 1 is focus. Especially in this music production gear space, it is super hard to keep your focus in terms of gear, especially, right? Because there's always something new coming out. There's always a new synth. There's always a new controller. There's always a new plugin. Even worse, there's always a new free plugin. And what ultimately happens there is we end up just collecting stuff and getting so much. And what that does in our head every time we, buy a new piece of gear, get that new plugin or whatever, it kind of checks a box in our brain and tells us that we're being productive. Oh, we're making steps towards being a better artist because we got new tools. But those tools only mean something when you start using them. And what often happens is we replace the act of using the tools with the act of finding new tools. So try to avoid that and focus on the gear that you have, the plugins that you have, whatever it may be. Try to limit yourself. Of course, there might be some utility in a certain tool that you find out there. Maybe you need a vocal plugin because you don't have any, or maybe you need a bigger keyboard because you only have 25 keys right now and you want to expand. There might be some need, but really ask yourself, do you need a new piece of gear, or are you just trying to scratch that itch so you don't have to use the tools that you already have? And then when you do all that, when you limit yourself, whether it's in gear, it's in sounds, plugins, you end up being able to hone your sound a lot easier and hone your style a lot easier. When you just have hundreds of plugins, different types of synths or whatever, your music's gonna sound all over the place because every month you're buying new plugins and you just use a whole bunch of different sounds. And if you never limit yourself, if you never focus, you never hone that creative style that is yours. So a lot of that style comes from limitation and focus. Next tip, get organized. So all that focus stuff is great, but if you're not organized in your approach, then you're just going to be kind of a mess and not be able to keep track of what you're doing and keep track of your progress. So file organization, as we all know, is very tedious, and once you start making stuff and saving them in random folders, it can become such a mess. Now, I'm not saying this is the end-all be-all answer for everybody, but last year I started just this new file naming convention that really helped, and it was a way to organize my projects so that I could finish more projects. And that was, first of all, I've got a folder for the year, and then within that 2021 folder, I will find folders for each month. And then within those folders, you can find a bunch of projects, all basically titled with the date. Now, this helps because I don't need to title a track when it's a work in progress. We don't need to put that unnecessary pressure on ourselves. And also, I can at least think back to when I made the track and go and find it. One thing I'll add to this year is probably adding one keyword or something, one signifier beyond just the date. Because if I go back to, February of last year, it's going to be hard for me to remember what I made on this date. But that's not the end. So they're all organized by time, but the best way for me to move forward and get some of these projects finished and done is by now taking them out of those month folders and putting them into my good stuff folder. So the good stuff folder lives within that 2021 folder. Within that is divided by genres, like the main genres that I work in, like lo-fi or pop music or trap beats or something like that. So then after the month is over, at the end of the month, you can go through each of those projects in that month's project folder. Some of those projects you're not gonna finish. And that brings me to my next tip. Be decisive. So I just described to you my whole system for organizing these and eventually putting the good stuff into the good stuff folder. Now, that's because we do not need to finish every single project that we make. In fact, we're not going to do that. And if we tell ourselves that we're going to do that, we're only going to feel defeated when we don't finish every project that we're going to make. And sometimes that's not even the purpose. Sometimes the purpose of working on a project, a music project, is just to study a certain technique, recreate a song that you really like, or maybe you learned a lot about sidechain compression in this project, maybe you learned a lot about reverb in that other project, and that's great. They serve as studies. They have this in the visual art world, and they actually give it a name where you just are doing a study to do like just a face study or even just like an eye study, like these really focused points. It's not about making a finished piece of art, it's about studying a specific aspect that's going to help you get better and make a finished piece of art later. I don't really know why we don't have names for that in music. But all that is to say, you got some projects that you're never going to finish. Cool. Be decisive, say I'm never going to finish those. But you got some projects that you love and some projects that you would really like to finish. And maybe even if you made a piece of music every day for 30 days in a month, let's say 10 of those projects you wanted to finish. That's fantastic. Now, sort them into folders based on what type of music they are. And maybe for you, you only work in one genre, or maybe you work in multiple. Organize them. So on the day you feel like working on a trap beat, you go into your good stuff trap beat folder, and boom, you get in there and you can finish a project that's good that you already started. That's awesome. And now that you're being decisive and all of your good projects are in one place, you won't feel bogged down by all of the project files that you've worked on but aren't so good. You won't get lost in the sauce and say, oh, I'll just start something new. No, when you can go back to a good stuff folder and problem solve how to finish something, then that's going to get you a lot closer to getting the music out. Speaking of getting the music out, let's set some goals. Okay, goals. Let's get this straight. I've said this in previous videos, but goals are not get a Billboard placement, win a Grammy, get 1 million subscribers on YouTube. None of those are goals. Those are aspirations. Why are they aspirations and not goals? Because I like to think of goals as things that you control. Maybe your goal is to do 10 jumping jacks a day. You know what? You're in control of that. You can do 10 jumping jacks a day if you want. Better goals for artists, creatives, and musicians don't revolve around arbitrary numbers or things you can't control. They revolve around being ridiculously achievable goals. For me, ridiculously achievable would be 1 beat a week. How do I know that that's ridiculously achievable? Because we did Beattober this year, where we all made beats and beat videos every single day. So even if I said I want to make 1 beat video per week, I know that's ridiculously achievable because I just did it for 31 days in a row. So doing 1 per week, ridiculously achievable. And when you have these ridiculously achievable goals, you become capable of more and more, because what was ridiculously achievable is even more ridiculously achievable by the time you're done with it. And then you can move on to other things that were maybe slightly harder, but now you're finding, oh, I think that's actually ridiculously achievable. Now, you still have those aspirations, right? So try to align your goals with your aspirations. If your aspiration is to get a placement or something, you should watch every single interview with big producers that are getting regular placements, producers that you look up to, and figure out the steps they are taking and break those down into ridiculous goals for yourself. Oh, that person made this many beats, they networked in this way, they put their beats in these places. Like, you can break that down into a ridiculously achievable goal to serve your bigger aspirations. And lastly, find a different creative hobby. If you're a musician, try visual art. If you're a visual artist, try music. Or not art related, try a sport or something. Whatever it is, get yourself out of the hole that is your specific creative practice. Because what often happens is we put blinders on and we start to forget that creativity, your artistic brain, yourself as a whole human beyond just being an artist, requires other things, and other experiences can inspire your main creative work. So I took up painting, and of course every chance I get to talk about it, I do. And I finished my first sketchbook in the back half of 2021. And I'm very, very proud of that. And what it actually helped me to do, learning watercolor painting, was take some time away from music, feel good, learn a new skill. And I also learned a lot about teaching because I was watching a lot of tutorials and people teach about how to do watercolor. And I was finding a lot of really great teachers out there explaining things in certain ways that I now take into account when I'm explaining things here on my channel that's not even painting related. But I'm really happy about that. I want to continue it. I was even doing some paintings for my album art. So it all kind of ties in together. It's really fun just to take on a new creative practice or a new hobby so that you're not constantly putting pressure on your main artistic focus. If you are telling yourself, I have to be making music all the time. If I want to make it, I have to 100% be doing this 24/7. That puts on this pressure that pretty much makes it unsustainable. For some get lucky and can sustain that, or maybe some do have the drive to do that, and that's fine. But for a lot of people, that is not sustainable, and that's actually not going to serve you well. For some people, the difference between working 24/7 and the difference between working 12/4, does that make sense? Is actually, there's no difference. Don't put so much pressure on yourself, you know? So think about that. A different hobby. I love playing Halo. Give yourself the opportunity to want to go back to your main creative practice, to want to get back into the studio. Sometimes if you're in the studio all the time, you don't necessarily have the chance to want to get back to it. So give yourself that opportunity. So to recap, find your focus, get organized, be decisive, set ridiculously achievable goals, and find a different hobby. I hope these are all helpful tips, and I hope that you have a good new year. I hope that you all continue to grow as artists. As you know, we have a really amazing community of channel members. If you're not a member yet, you can join and become a member of our Discord server. You can also submit music for our track review streams, and VIP members and above get a free sample pack. Actually, all members right now get a free small sample pack on the community tab. So if you want to become a member and become part of any of that, join the community. Community can be really helpful for pushing you forward. There's been some great collaborations in the community lately, and it's a good just support system of people sharing ideas, things like that. So consider hitting the join button. If you click that, you'll see all the perk information. Check it out. That's going to be it. Like I said at the beginning, if you're not watching this in January, it doesn't matter. You can watch this at any time you want to improve your creative practice and become a better artist. You don't need a calendar to tell you when to start. You can start today, whether it's January, July, or even December. Just start. Thank you all so much for watching. This has been TAETRO. Have a good one.